At the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to a woman named Sabina. She struggles with mental instability, becoming easily irritated and upset. As a result, in 1904, she was admitted to a well-known psychiatric hospital in Zurich, Switzerland. Eventually, it was revealed that Sabina had a classic case of hysteria and was about to begin treatment under medical supervision. She was placed under the care of a Swiss doctor named Carl Jung. During their first conversation, Dr. Carl stands beside Sabina and observes that she has trouble responding to questions. She frequently begins to stutter. The following morning, Carl takes Sabina for a walk through the forest. During this walk, he notices something unusual. She has an extraordinary ability to predict people's words before they even speak them. When asked about this, Sabina explains that she has an inner angel who communicates with her in German and helps her foresee events. Upon hearing this, Dr. Carl suggests that her unique gift could prove valuable in the field of medicine. During their discussion, Sabina suddenly throws her coat on the ground, and Carl asks her to pick it up. Instead, he lifts it with his cane. Strangely, this action angers Sabina, and she harshly tells him to stop. A few days later, Carl learns that Sabina is, in fact, a highly intelligent woman with a background in medicine. Recognizing her sharp mind and lively spirit, he offers her an opportunity to assist him with his research. Sabina is overwhelmed by the chance to work alongside such a renowned scientist and accepts without hesitation. Later in the movie, we see Carl's wife, Emma, who has just given birth to a beautiful baby girl. Overjoyed by the occasion, Carl visits the maternity ward to see his newborn child. However, he soon realizes that his wife is deeply disappointed. She had hoped for a son, but instead gave birth to a daughter. In response, Carl reassures her, gently comforting her and telling her not to dwell on it. During these events, Carl and Sabina continue their conversation. The man reveals the root cause of her condition. He explains that Sabina's troubles began due to her abusive father, who constantly humiliated her. He would often punish her with physical blows and force her to kiss his hands. This deeply affected Sabina, causing her to seek out forms of humiliation. Even the moment when Carl had touched her coat with his cane earlier had stirred strong emotions in her. After identifying the core issue, Dr. Carl arranges a meeting with Dr. Sigmund Freud, a renowned Austrian physician. Carl wants to discuss his patients and determine the most effective path to their recovery. As the two doctors engage in conversation, they begin exchanging thoughts and analyzing each other's perspectives. This leads to an intense discussion that lasts for 13 uninterrupted hours. Despite the lengthy exchange, neither of them feels exhausted, and they eagerly decide to meet again soon. Later, Carl meets with Sabina and tells her about his conversation with Dr. Freud. As they talk, they realize they share many common interests, which brings them significantly closer to each other. One day, Dr. Freud prepares to leave on a business trip and writes a letter to Carl. Otto is an unstable psychoanalyst, widely known for both his brilliant intellect and his tendency toward debauchery. In the letter, Freud provides a detailed account of the patient's condition, including an unusual warning. Otto has a habit of biting when he is angry. Wanting to maintain his friendship with Freud, Carl agrees without hesitation. Carl then attends Otto's session, intending to use therapeutic conversation to help him. However, during their discussion, Otto reveals his true character, boasting about his many mistresses. He even encourages Carl to pursue multiple women, claiming that doing so keeps a man fit and healthy, whereas remaining with only one partner supposedly leads to headaches. Interestingly, this philosophy is still echoed today by a certain Dr. Tate. The following day, Sabina actively assists Carl with his research, even cracking a few jokes to make him laugh. She seems to be making significant progress in her recovery. However, Carl's mind keeps drifting back to Otto's words. He starts to realize that he has been gazing at Sabina for a long time, though he manages to restrain himself from acting on his impulses. That evening, Carl has another psychotherapy session with Otto. Otto asks whether Carl has ever had a romantic relationship with one of his patients. Carl firmly denies it and redirects the question. Otto, in response, reveals that he manipulates his patients into believing that their reluctance to be involved with him is actually an illness. He claims to use this approach on every woman he meets, and boasts that it has worked nearly every time. Proudly, Otto declares that he has had romantic encounters with over 100 women. The next morning, Carl meets Sabina in the park, and their conversation drifts toward more mature topics. Sabina confesses that she has no personal experience in this area, and she believes that this may be one of the reasons behind her lingering feelings of depression and anxiety. She expresses her desire to explore such experiences. Carl listens but hesitates. Taking matters into her own hands, Sabina suddenly kisses him. She then invites him to her home that evening so they can engage in intimate activities. Later, during a therapy session, Otto once again attempts to persuade Carl to give in to his desires and accept Sabina's invitation. However, Carl remains firm in his decision. He does not wish to betray his wife, nor does he want to violate the ethical boundary of being involved with a patient. Despite Carl's resistance, Otto continues to share stories of his many romantic escapades. Slowly, Carl's determination begins to waver, and eventually, he succumbs to temptation. No longer able to restrain himself, Carl rushes to Sabina's home, where they finally give in to their desires. This marks the beginning of their secret affair. Over time, their encounters become increasingly intense, incorporating elements such as hand-tying and other unconventional activities. One day, Emma surprises Carl with a special gift. She presents him with a boat adorned with red sails, knowing it is something he has always dreamed of. She expresses her admiration for him, telling him that he is the best man in the world and deserves everything his heart desires. Overcome by guilt, Carl realizes the depth of her love and trust. And at that moment, the weight of his betrayal becomes unbearable. Determined to do the right thing, he visits Sabina and tells her that they must end their affair immediately. However, she refuses to let go and insists that he continue their relationship. She even urges him to treat her in the same way her father once did, pleading for him to punish her. A few days later, Dr. Freud returns from his business trip and meets with Carl. They discuss their psychoanalytic theories once again, but the conversation soon turns into arguments, causing a strain on their friendship. As tensions rise, Freud starts spreading rumors about Carl, suggesting that he is visiting one of his patients' homes and having an affair with her. Carl vehemently denies the accusation, insisting that he is merely showing attention and care to the woman. After the meeting, Carl comes to the realization that he can no longer keep his relationship with Sabina a secret. Therefore, he decides to end their affair, leaving Sabina deeply disappointed. A few days later, a furious Sabina storms into Carl's office, accusing him of telling her mother about their affair. She calls him a traitor and an idiot. In response, Carl calmly explains that Sabina's mother had already known about their relationship, as someone had sent her an anonymous letter with the details. Carl tells Sabina that from now on, he will treat her only as his patient and will no longer acknowledge their past relationship. This statement infuriates Sabina even further, causing her to grab a knife and lash out at Carl, leaving a mark on his face. Later, Sabina writes a letter to Dr. Freud, asking for a meeting to discuss her connection with Carl. After reading her letter, Freud writes to Carl to inquire about the truth of the situation. Carl denies any involvement with Sabina and claims that she is attempting to ruin his life by spreading lies. Out of loyalty to their friendship, Freud believes Carl's account and sends Sabina a response, stating that he cannot meet with her at the moment due to his busy schedule. Freud suggests that Sabina and Carl resolve their issues privately, without involving others. Stunned by these events, Sabina visits Carl again in his office, only to discover that he is being discharged from the hospital. It turns out he is traveling to the United States to attend an important conference. Sabina becomes enraged and accuses Carl of lying to Freud about their affair. She demands that he write a letter to Freud and confess the truth about their relationship. Sabina also reminds Carl that she could have publicly destroyed his reputation, but chose not to. Faced with her accusations, Carl finally agrees to write the letter. He confesses everything in the letter to Freud. When Freud reads Carl's letter, he feels betrayed, but is not entirely shocked. He writes back to Sabina, apologizing and expressing his admiration for the way she handled the situation. The movie fast-forwards a few years. Sabina visits Carl's house in Switzerland to work on her dissertation together. As they collaborate, they reflect on their shared past, reminiscing about their intimate moments in various places, including a bedroom, a psychiatric ward, and even a boat. Eventually, they decide to add one more memory to that list. Carl and Sabina begin to engage in adult games once again. Afterward, Sabina reveals that she plans to leave Zurich after graduation and move to Vienna. This news deeply worries Carl, and he begs her not to go, but Sabina is resolute in her decision. 2 years later, Sabina has become a qualified psychiatrist and has relocated to Vienna. There, she meets Freud. During their discussion on psychoanalysis, Sabina expresses her support for Freud, but also acknowledges the importance of Carl's and Freud's collaboration in advancing the field. Freud, however, seems uninterested in mending his relationship with Carl. They are so far apart that neither of them even wants to be in the same room as the other. A year passes, and Sabina visits Emma at her home. Sabina is now married to a Russian doctor and is expecting a child. During their conversation, Emma confides that Carl's mental health has been deteriorating. He has been acting strangely ever since his falling out with Freud. Emma asks Sabina to speak with Carl and try to help him. The film shows Carl sitting silently by the riverbank, suggesting that he has withdrawn from his research and is no longer productive. Soon, Sabina approaches and begins a conversation. Carl tells her that he has been plagued by horrible dreams that keep him awake at night. Sometimes he dreams that the entire city is destroyed. Sabina grows bored with the conversation and quickly changes the subject, telling Carl that she is returning to Russia with her husband. She then inquires about Carl's new lover. Carl replies that her name is Tony, and she bears a striking resemblance to Sabina. He admits that Tony reminds him of the good times he shared with Sabina. Carl acknowledges that his love for her played a significant role in his personal growth, but he realizes that there is nothing more he can do to change the circumstances. After their conversation, Sabina gets into her car and leaves the town, while Carl remains deep in thought, reflecting on his past. Why am I not in the place of that psychologist?